welcome to the first property quorum of the year. Well, it's been an interesting time, hasn't it? Budgets, shenanigans, America trying to take over the world, place by place. Who knew we would be stepping into such an interesting mess? But, however, I have to introduce you once again, to Hamish McClay of Search Convey, Silas J. Lees of WikiWam, Paul Addison, who is our special guest today, and myself. And today we will be, as ever, negotiating our way around what is the property market. But to start us off, and without any further ado, Hamish McClay.
Interesting today, and it's actually great to have sort of Paul join us, along with sort of Silas. Silas and I, in particular, the majority of works that we have done over the years, when we look at work to do with conveyancing, we have been looking at the content of the parcel, if you like, or the content of the property inside that property boundary, to see what is actually sort of going on within there, because that is very important to the client who's buying a property. And of course, information can be relayed from the owner of the property, the seller of the property. So really much of our information has been based on that particular style of data. Now, because one of the great things about the sort of work that Paul's been doing over the years, very, very accomplished. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate indeed. We don't have Juliet available today to actually speak on the legal side of things, but the two experts we actually sort of have joining us, both Silas and Paul, have a remarkable amount of experience between them relative to property sort of generally, to do with developments and sort of what have you. What we have been able to sort of rely on over the years, and this was changed by our Conservative government, we would automatically, if we had a property and our neighbour proposed doing something, we'd get some detail of what our neighbour was proposing to do, to ask if there was going to be any impact upon us. And many would say, well, we don't want that going on in my backyards, which is where, of course, the whole concept of the NIMBYs come from. Not in my backyard. And in actual fact, it helped in village locations and all sorts of things. So we would get that second opinion. Now, of course, things have actually changed. The Conservative government took that away, so no longer are the people advised in the locality. You might see something stuck on the lamppost. And that's much information. All the information we can actually gather is what has been revealed to us. But we've got a situation now where we've got a newer government in now. They just want to build houses. So they're starting to override what local people think about what is going on. And eventually, by pushing hard enough, these developers are able to get away with things which they wouldn't have been able to get away with 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Silas, thank you so much, Hamish. Silas, welcome to the show as per friend of the show. Are things finding their level, or is the world still mad?
That is a great question, Gareth. I think, particularly in the context of the property world, there is a lot of turbulence right now. And what I'm particularly enjoying is each and every one of these areas of confusion, an entrepreneur usually emerges, like Paul, who has a fantastic solution to sort of solve some of these challenges. So the planning world is quite treacherous to navigate. Not only that, if you're buying a property, let's say you're buying a lovely house in the country, it's got this wonderful view over a field, and you think that view is going to be there for the next 20 years whilst you're bringing up your kids and everything else. The technology that exists nowadays through people like Paul is that you can actually have future insight as to whether or not that field is going to remain a field, or whether there's going to be 1,000 houses built around you. And that's the sort of thing that I think is, with the current government's push for more housing development, almost a kind of blanket approach. We're going to build however many millions of homes that they claim to be wanting to build. That obviously puts pressure on local land parcels that can be made available for residential development. And unless there is, I think, for hearing from certain developers, and I think Chris, one of the fans of the show, will tell you that planning has become harder to navigate and has become more costly because of the conditions around it. And therefore, a lot of development sites don't actually work financially, meaning that the government is not going to hit their targets until some of those things are relaxed. But do they need to be relaxed too far, so that we end up with housing everywhere is another question.
Well, goodness. Welcome to the show, Paul Addison from Devassist. Is it a piece of software or is it a site, Devassist?
It's a combination. It's humans doing real research.
Oh my God, humans doing stuff.
I know, human intelligence. Who would have thought it?
I know. But of course, often these days I find that human and intelligence is an oxymoron. But moving on.
Yeah.
So
a combination of using technology with human researchers who understand how the planning system has evolved. And as Silas quite rightly says, it is a very complex beast. And what the Labour government have done since they've gained power, they have tried to remove certain roadblocks. And it is, to some extent, it is simplifying it. The industry is very three-dimensional. That they're just looking at one part. They need to look at the economy. The economy unlocks housing provision. People will not build, or house builders will not build more houses if there's not the economy there to go and sell them.
Right.
And we still do have parts of the country where it's not economically viable to clean up dirty sites. But the Labour government, they are making a difference with the planning system. And the point that Hamish was touching on, the consultation process on planning, that is changing quite fast, and to a disturbing extent, where consultation lists are being removed. The duty to cooperate between councils, that's being removed. And there are certain documents, one of which we're very proud. We are the only researchers of, and it's nicknamed as the Sheila, Strategic Housing and Economic Land Availability Assessment.
You should be really doing that in an Australian accent, surely.
Well, sure. Yes. And the Sheila it's a critical document that we investigate, and nobody knows they exist. It's only because of our background. We were the bad guys. We were the nasty people that went out there and identified the development opportunities and took them through the system. So I come from decades of house building. And the Sheila it's a remarkable document. Nobody knows it's there, and it's very revealing. And unfortunately, some house owners could have that beautiful field sitting behind them. And that land could be in a Sheila, but they haven't been told because they're not on the consultation list. So this is why, we created Devassist, so that we would do those investigations on a house buyer's behalf.
And I believe that you are working in close relationship to IPSA, the Association of Independent Property Search Agents. Have I got that right?
Yeah. We're available and work closely with great bodies such as IPSA. So we're just trying to spread the word, and it's a remarkable thing that we can do for house buyers.
Silas, it appears to me that apart from the own goals that the dear government has been scoring last year, maybe this could be turning over a new leaf.
It certainly seems positive from what Paul's suggesting here. NIMBYs have always been a bit of a thorn in the side to developers from a point of view of, I can speak from my own experiences. We had a site which was a conversion, went through the planning process, went through the listed buildings process. We were bringing a building back into use that hadn't been occupied for 5 years or more, generating revenue for the local economy, and yet the next door neighbour complained because they said we were going to have 17 satellite dishes all over the building, and then the listed buildings officer turns up, and you get all of this extra work to do, which was all based on complete fabrication and nonsense. But the sort of level of depth of detail that Paul is referring to, of course, is significantly deeper and will affect a homeowner a lot more, particularly their investment in their home. You could be talking of wiping, anywhere between probably 50 to, several £100,000 worth of value off your home if you're not informed when you come to buy it. And I think this fits in really nicely with the government's call for home buying reform, because having that educated position going into it means that you're going into it eyes wide open, you know exactly what you're buying, rather than a surprise that, you find yourself in 2 years later where Barratt turn up and start building houses and you're stuck in the middle not being able to do anything.
Knowledge is power, as ever. Would you say that DevAssist is uniquely placed to help homeowners make better decisions, or is it wider than that?
Look, I mean, I've been in the game about 30 odd years, and I was absolutely, and no word of a lie, blown away when I saw the demo of what it was actually capable of doing, and I think it is critical. So when people talk, and Hamish was talking about this earlier, the composition of what I call a seller's pack, or the material information when you're buying and selling a property, I think it's a non-negotiable based on all of the information that DevAssist showed me, that report has to form part of that material information. I just can't see any other reason as to why you would exclude it, because it is so vitally important. So,
Hamish, it appears to me that software like DevAssist could be a game changer, given the current reticence to build anything because of running over people's toes, just in case you stop poor little Johnny being able to look out of his window of a morning.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the aspects of what we do and have been doing, and the way it lends itself towards what Silas is trying to actually sort of achieve, what we're looking towards, because so much that's involved with the local authority report is actually giving information relative to what is held about, is your property going to sort of fall down? Do you have your planning permissions on all of these particular sort of things? And then we bring along what is evolving and what we really want to help estate agents with, to give information that is material to that property. So we wanted to give that three-dimensional sort of approach, if you like.
Yeah.
Now we're getting more holistic in terms of the type of insight that Paul can actually sort of bring to that original information. It expands it even more. So we are getting a far, far bigger picture, because it wasn't as important. I mean, we're speaking about marginally sort of different things, but all of a sudden that a property was deemed to be a perfectly good and perfectly adequate hotel or barracks to sort of house army people, all of a sudden becomes, oh, that's great, we can put a lot of immigrants in there that had never been planned for, and permission was given for that to actually sort of happen. That's a bit of a drama on the opposite sort of side of things, but it is quite. Do we really want that in our backyards? Is that in the best interest, putting those particular types of things near to a charming little village which has a population of 1,200? Do you want 600 people you don't know who the heck they are alongside of it, or alongside a school or whatever? I mean, that's the broader end of things. However, it is a good idea to know something like that up front. But I think more importantly, as we've spoken of, and as we're beginning to sort of realize lands which were bought way back in the 2019, 2018, which looked as a viable way to go at the time, when you start bringing in some of those ideas, those concepts that Paul and DevAssist are looking at, well, that really isn't economically a particularly good idea. For all sorts of different reasons. So that particular sort of field which you've got your ideas set on is no longer the case. But it is a great bit of information for developers. And I would imagine, as much as the the buyer of properties, particularly sort of within rural areas, that sort of information is going to be so powerful to developers to say, is it worth buying? is it worth buying up that agricultural land? Because if it is valueless, if it's not going to help the economy sort of locally, but it's actually going to sort of strangle it or sort of almost, because how the heck do you get to it if there's no infrastructure there? There's no roads and sort of all of these particular sort of things. So there's a lot of work there which is coming through, and some of that information would be vital sort of going forward for individuals.
Paul, it seems to me that combined with what IPSA do, which is excellent curated searches, if you combine that with something like Devassist, you've got a proper 360 view. What's next for Devassist?
Well, we continue to build our technology. We've created our own layer of mapping which sits over the Ordnance Survey. So what we are attempting to build, and will take some time, will be an accurate real-time view of what is happening in a particular location at any one time. So we aspire to have all live applications, all planning refusals, change of use applications. So anybody of any industry can look at a location and understand in real time what is actually happening in that location, so that they can understand the population growth, population predictions, where people are migrating to, so that people can properly plan. So that's where we're aspiring to with what we're investing in. It's going to take some time, and there's an awful lot of data to put in there. Unfortunately, a lot of the data that we have to capture and investigate is reported differently in every single council in the country.
Oh, yes. This is an old story, isn't it?
Yeah. So as a consequence, you can go to one and it'll be digitized. You go to another and it's still on an old-fashioned PDF. So it's very hard. So it's quite manual to update it. But it builds every single day and gets more intelligent every single day. But the future will be, a press of a button and you will be able to view everything that's happening in that location. It could be coal mining and historically what's happened underneath, or it could be from what Devassist sees as to what's current and what's down the road. And that's so important when people are buying property. And it's knowing that one day they're going to have to sell that house on, and what they need to buy when they buy it at their point of purchase is structural integrity, a clean marketable title, and a vision for the future. What's going to be happening in that location? It's the corniest phrase in property: location, location, location. And yet it's the one thing we failed to investigate prior to us and my brilliant team creating the business that we've now got.
Yes, well, with some of the news we were getting last year, it was more deflation, deflation, deflation. But anyway, moving on. Hamish, would you care to take us home, sir?
Well, I think what we do, we are beginning to get a better picture. And I think it's rather fortunate that we have both sort of Paul and Silas with us today, because it does actually sort of show, at least in the style of what we are trying to achieve as individuals, to bring together for the industry generally, is more powerful and more effective information that can actually be utilized by sort of so many people. As I said, not only do we have this sort of this is sort of invaluable, sort of almost four-dimensional, getting on for five-dimensional approach that we have now. Previously, it was very, very limited. It was very much sort of black and white. It was very much almost two-dimensional.
Yes.
Whereas, of course, we're just adding to that particular, and it does help. Everybody's concerned about it from the very, very start of the whole operation. It does help that local council, should they actually go down that particular route. They're under pressure, local councils. They have to free up land. And the fact that they think it's an idea without actually validating it through the information that's available through the likes of Devassist does actually sort of show that certain dangers can be removed. Properties won't be bought, if you like, large large swathes of land will not be bought unnecessarily, which is a waste of everybody's time, everybody's money. And then the most important thing, of course, people will not be all of a sudden inundated with all these houses surrounding that lovely little property, which they bought, putting up with 2 or 3 years of development and house building as well. Never mind what's going to happen after that 3 or 4 years of building the property and all of the various different phases it goes through. So I do think we are getting a far, far better picture, or we're able to get a far, far better picture. That is a way forward. That is a great positive.
Well, incredible. And I think that potentially not using a product like Devasys could be, wait for it, pause for effect, devastating. So I would, yes, you're welcome. But I think that what you should be doing is making sure that you have as much up-to-date information about what it is you're proposing to do before you do it. It makes perfect sense to me, I suppose, that that products like Devasys will help you do that. Keep your finger on the pulse. But I say to all of you, it seems like maybe I'm talking too soon, green shoots of new interest and intelligence are coming forward with the likes of Devasys. With IPSA having one of their major meetings on Monday, we will take that still further forward. And I say to all of you, please keep your feet on the ground firmly. You keep reaching for the stars and hopefully look after your mental health. Until next week, bye-bye.